I've heard a few different theories, as I'm sure you have, as to how lightly or tightly we should grip the putter. Some say we should grip it as lightly as possible. Some say hold it like you're holding a tube of toothpaste or a baby bird. Others say grip it reasonably tightly for stability. The reality is it's gonna perhaps change from putt to putt, and it will be different for one golfer compared to another. In this video, I'm going to explain to you perhaps the strokes and the putts where a lighter grip might be a little bit more appropriate, and then the type of strokes and the type of putts where we might need to be gripping it a little bit more firmly. Hopefully it's going to give you a little bit of an understanding of the correct grip pressure that might apply to you, and hopefully you're going to see some better data produced when you're using your HackMotion in terms of keeping the wrists nice and stable. So watch on, and hopefully you're going to gain a better understanding of the grip pressures that might apply to you. So first of all, let's talk about when a light grip might be more appropriate, the stroke style that it is more suited to, and the type of putt that it's more suited to. Well, first of all, stroke type is simply one that is not producing an excess amount of acceleration or a harder amount of acceleration, therefore a stroke that is smoother and slower, okay? If you're someone that has a slower tempo, you don't need to stabilize that as much, and therefore it's possible for you to have a lighter grip pressure. And then similarly, we don't need to produce as much acceleration for a shorter putt. So the shorter the putt, generally the lighter I can grip it. And why I would prefer someone to have perhaps a slightly lighter grip, especially if it's a shorter putt, and especially if they have a smoother tempo, is that if there is any wrist motion, we can really feel that. Okay, so if I produce some radial or ulnar in my stroke, I can really feel that if I've got a lighter grip pressure. If I'm gripping it really tight and doing that, it's really difficult for me to feel that. So a lighter grip pressure for me, especially on the shorter putts, is giving me more feedback for how my wrists are moving, and in actuality, more feedback for where that club face is and where that sweet spot is. So a preference for me would be, again, especially if you're a smoother tempo, and especially if you're hitting a shorter putt, you're going to grip it reasonably light, so then you're going to get better feedback both for putter face and sweet spot and wrist motion. So that would be the scenarios where a lighter grip pressure might apply. If you're somebody who has a quicker tempo, okay, like a Snedeker as an example, and if you're hitting a longer putt, and if you're doing both, then it's going to accentuate the amount of grip pressure that you might need. You're going to have to grip it a little bit more firmly. So let's talk about a short putt for a quicker tempo. There's not a load of acceleration going into this stroke, so I can grip it lighter than I would a longer putt, but I still need more grip pressure to stabilize than I would if I'm a little bit smoother. So I'm going to grip it just that little bit firmer if I have a faster tempo, and it's just going to create that little bit more stability as I do that. Again, if we're going to a longer putt, we're producing more acceleration, so we're likely to need a firmer grip to stabilize the wrists. So it's kind of simple, really. The more aggressive the acceleration, that's both because you're trying to produce more speed within the stroke, or because you have a smoother or quicker tempo. The more aggressive the acceleration, then the tighter or firmer the grip is going to need to be to stabilize the wrists and to control the face and the sweet spot. So now relating that to your HackMotion data, a really neat way to understand the right grip pressure for you could be how light can you grip it, and the data on your HackMotion, the wrists stay pretty stable, especially radial or ulnar. As you might already know, I don't mind a little bit of flexion extension as long as it's helping the stroke flow, but probably for a short putt we don't want too much. So if you're someone who's got a faster tempo, like I said before, and you grip it light, you're probably gonna see excess flexion extension especially. So how lightly can you grip it and yet keep the wrist pretty stable? And measure that with your HackMotion. You'll see for me, I can grip it pretty light because my tempo's reasonably smooth, not too fast, and yet the wrists stay pretty stable throughout the stroke. So that's just a neat way that you can use your HackMotion. How lightly can I grip it and yet there not be too much excessive wrist motion throughout the stroke, especially on a short one. If you're going to a longer one, we don't mind a little bit of flexion extension. So hopefully this has given you a little bit more of an understanding of the grip pressure that might apply to you and how you can test this and measure this on your HackMotion.